Ladies and gentlemen, would you welcome to the stage the Honorable Senator from Iowa, Tom Harkin.
Well, obviously, our next guest is little known to you, and I want to be very brief and very concise in my introduction, because this is a bittersweet moment for me. This is Tom Harkin's 28th appearance at the National Community Action Foundation. For the last 15 years, he's invited himself. I've talked throughout the last couple of days about Tom Harkin's legislative achievements. All of you are familiar with the name Tom Harkin. And if you look, and we had breakfast a couple weeks ago, and we talked about his career, just the amazing work that he has done in the United States Senate for the last 30 years. And whether it's his work on the Help Committee, his leadership on appropriations, Tom Harkin, more than any other individual that I know in the 20th century, has touched and improved the lives of more people in America than any other legislator I'm aware of. So I encouraged him to write his autobiography, but before Tom Harkin comes up for his last appearance as U.S. Senator, he's already invited himself next year, let me just close by saying I'm going to call up and introduce to you the best friend Community Action has ever had, Senator Tom Harkin. You're my buddy.
Thank you so much.
Yes, we love you, Tom.
More than kind. Oh. Thank you, David. Thank you, David. Thank you all. David, thank you for that overly generous introduction. As Mark Twain once said when he was introduced with a lot of effusive praise, he turned to the man who'd introduced him and said, "Sir, you'll go to heaven for your generosity." Let me just reply in kind about my good friend David Bradley. I can't tell you how important it is for any association to have a strong and experienced and effective advocate on Capitol Hill, especially one who is respected on both sides of the aisle. David Bradley has a larger-than-life personality, more than a match for the big egos on Capitol Hill. So, David, you've been a terrific leader, one of my close personal friends for a long, long time. And I just want you all to know you can have the utmost pride in the person who represents you here in Washington, in David Bradley. He is a wonderful human being. A heart of gold and a sharp mind, and knows how to get things done. The other day, one of my staffers said, "Tom, you're going to speak to NCAF again." I didn't realize it was at 28. 28. And every year, they said it's always like a love-in. I said, "You're right. I have the greatest respect for what you folks do, what you are, the work you do. You seem to appreciate the work that I do, so what's wrong with a love-in here in Washington?" So it's great to see so many old friends, some new this morning. I've already had a chance yesterday and this morning to meet with some of my friends from Iowa, Lana Ross and all of them. By the way, in her day job, Lana is the great leader of Iowa's 18 agencies, but she's also famous all across Iowa as the State Fair Blue Ribbon winner for her pecan rolls. not to mention her pies. And she's kind enough to bring some to my Des Moines staff once in a while. So Lana, to you and to all of my great friends who lead our community action agencies in Iowa, thank you for what you do in my state of Iowa. I appreciate it very much. So to all of you, welcome to Washington. I recently heard a good description of this city from the humorist Dave Barry. He said that Washington is, quote, as a city that has no industries and a workforce consisting entirely of former student council presidents, yet it manages to produce 95% of the nation's crises. Unfortunately, a lot of folks in this city seem to be determined to create a crisis for your agencies. Let me just say this in no uncertain terms. As the chairman of the Appropriations Committee in charge of the funding, I'm going to protect the CSBG, LIHEAP, and other programs at the very heart of our safety net in this country. And we're going to succeed. Now, there are others in Washington who want to slash your funding. They're not really your friends. They make no bones about it. One of them is the chair of the House Budget Committee. How does Congressman Ryan propose to balance the budget at the same time dramatically increasing spending on the Pentagon and cutting taxes on the rich? How does he do it? He simply rips up the safety net. In Congressman Ryan's world, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. He claims the safety net programs are a failure because they cause and perpetuate poverty. All of which reminds me of something the philosopher Bertrand Russell said more than a century ago. He said, quote, "The modern conservative is engaged in one of man's oldest exercises in moral philosophy. That is, the search for a superior moral justification for greed." Let me be clear, there is no moral justification for greed. And there's no excuse for any member of Congress being so out of touch with the harsh realities of today's economy. You folks confront these realities every day. You see the consequences of the worst crisis of chronic unemployment since the Great Depression. You see more and more Americans losing their grip on the middle class. During this unusually harsh winter, you've seen a flood of families turning to you for emergency assistance and paying their propane bills and putting food on the table. Let's be clear, your agencies don't perpetuate poverty. You fight poverty. You lift people up. You give them the confidence to face tomorrow. This is exactly why it's so important that you've come to town this week to spend time on Capitol Hill educating your members of Congress about the truly vital work that you do. The good news is that many members of Congress already know about the difference you make. They do appreciate it. Now, I would be totally remiss if I came here today in the spring of 2014 without acknowledging that this is the 50th anniversary of you and of President Lyndon Johnson's historic war on poverty. David told me that Lloyd Hand spoke yesterday. He's a good friend of mine, and I know I may be repeating some of the things he said, but I think it's worth repeating. I didn't hear his speech. But I've spoken a lot in the past few years about LBJ and his legacy. He's one of my great heroes. He grew up in hardscrabble rural Texas. He understood how poor schools, empty stomachs, and lack of jobs make a mockery of equal opportunity for all. On January the 8th, 1964, think about this, less than 2 months after the assassination of President Kennedy, LBJ went before a joint session of Congress and declared unconditional war on poverty. In the months that followed, think about this, he sent legislation to Congress creating a whole panoply of programs to wage that war. The Great Civil Rights Act, Job Corps, VISTA, Upward Bound, the Food Stamp Program, legal services, community health centers, Head Start, Medicaid, and the Economic Opportunity Act that led to the creation of community action agencies. So for 5 decades, you folks have been our frontline soldiers in the war on poverty. You made a big difference. As President Obama recently noted, the Great Society initiatives have helped reduce poverty by over 40% since the 1960s. But 50 years later, there are powerful forces that seek to destroy this achievement. They seek to dismantle the Great Society, shred the safety net. I've been speaking lately about being disturbed by a shift of attitude by many in Congress, a shift towards a kind of a callousness, a harshness of spirit. For example, we used to agree that the minimum wage should not be a poverty wage. And we used to agree that if you lose your job through no fault of your own, you should have some support while you're looking for new work. We used to agree that no child in this country should go to bed hungry at night. But in recent years, these fundamental values have come under attack. For example, many Republicans in the Senate continue to filibuster our bill to expand unemployment insurance for long-term jobless. As also a member of the Agriculture Committee, need I remind you of how much the House wanted to cut the food stamp program in the recent Farm Bill. Next week, as the chair of the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, I will bring to the floor my bill to raise the minimum wage to $10.10 an hour. That too is being blocked by Republicans. I just had a hearing on it the other day, and I again want to thank Lana Ross for bringing Alicia McCrary to testify before my committee. There was an op-ed written by her that was just in the Cedar Rapids paper just yesterday morning. Alicia McCrary is a mother of 4 boys. If I remember right, I don't have it in front of me. One was 12, twins 10, and another boy about 7 or 8. She left a domestic abuse situation in Illinois, came to Iowa, struggling to take care of her kids, taking a bus to work every day, trying to take care of those 4 boys. And her letter, her testimony was so poignant. You know, you get all the experts up there telling you all these things. It was so wonderful to hear from Alicia what it meant to her to be making $7.25 an hour, having to take the bus back and forth, trying to provide for her kids, trying to give them the best opportunity that she could, and what it would mean to her to have a little bit of a raise in her pay from the Social Security. You know, people ask me, why 10-10? Why did I pick the number 10-10? Because $10.10 brings you above the poverty level. And then we index it in the future, so we never fall below that again. I guess is this: no one in America should go to work every day, stand on their feet, do hard work, try to provide for the families. No one who goes to work every day should live in poverty. That wage should be above the poverty level. There are those that say, well, maybe we'll raise it to $9. $9 is still below poverty. You're still working every day, and you're below the poverty level. It's time to get it above. And let me tell you another thing. Think about our tipped workers, the people who wait on your tables, the people who park your cars, people who do a lot of different jobs that are tipped wages. Do you know what the minimum wage is for tipped workers now? $2.13 an hour. It's been that way since 1991. $2.13 an hour. I have a copy of a pay stub from a restaurant worker here in Washington, D.C., a pay stub. You know what her pay was for 2 weeks? $0.00. After they took out her FICA and everything else, she got no money except what she made in tips. It is unconscionable that someone in America working as hard as our restaurant workers and others, that they get $2.13 an hour. It's time to raise their minimum wage also. So we need your help on this. You'll take your stories to Capitol Hill. Tell them what it means to people like Alicia McCrary to get a little raise in her salary and her wages also, so that she can provide for her family. For too many, the new attitude just seems to be tough luck, you're on your own. If you're born into poverty or a single parent struggling to make ends meet, tough luck, you're on your own. If you're a person with a significant disability struggling to find work and independence and dignity, you're on your own. President Johnson would rebuke this harshness. In January, I got a hold of Linda Robb Johnson, one of his daughters, and said I was going to give a speech on the Senate floor on the war on poverty. And she sent me one of her favorite quotes from her dad, from Lyndon Johnson, President Johnson. Listen to this. God will judge his children not by their prayers and by their pretensions, but by their mercy to the poor and their understanding of the weak. I tremble for our people if at the time of our greatest prosperity we turn our back on the moral obligations of our deepest faith. My friends, those are the words that we should live by, not the harshness and the callousness of turning our backs on poor people. So, my friends, this is the last time I will appear before you as your senator. And I mean that when I say your senator. No matter where you're from, I'm your senator. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you for all that you do throughout this country. You help to define America as a compassionate nation that doesn't turn its back on those in the shadows of life, a nation that refuses to say, tough luck, you're on your own. You tell people, have hope, we're in this together. As we all know too well, this compassion in America has never been given to us. We'll have to fight for it. We have to fight for it. So I've come here this morning to tell you that even though I may be retiring from the Senate, I'm not retiring from the fight for economic and social justice. And I must tell you that in retiring from the Senate, one of the things that makes it somewhat easier to leave a job I love and the people that I've worked with, one of the things that makes it easier, that gives me hope that we are going to turn the corner on this, that we're going to have a brighter future, is that we still have Nancy Pelosi in the House of Representatives. So I have been so proud to be your partner through all these years. As I said, I'm still going to be in this fight in the future. You'll probably see me down the road doing other things. I'll kind of narrow some of the things I work on, but this will be one that I will continue to work on and to continue to work to make sure that people with disabilities in our country still have the opportunity to live independently and have their own jobs and to succeed in our society. So I So I leave you and teach you. I'll teach you one thing. As I learned sign language from my brother when I was growing up, one of the most wonderful deaf signs that I ever learned is simply this. And I'm going to teach it to you, and you can take it home with you. So you just take your hand and you put your little finger up. That's the letter I. Now this gets a little difficult. You got to go like this. That's the letter L, and that's Y. Okay, you got it? I, L, Y. So you hold your hand like this. It's kind of hard. That's the deaf sign, and when you go like this, that's the deaf sign for I love you. And I leave you with those words. I love you. Thank you.